Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Rob Roselli Show. And I'm excited to welcome to the program conspiracist and author and much more, Rob Roselli. Rob, how are you? I was thinking
I'm
about,
good, Neil.
I was thinking about just how now Trump has beat the trial. Now he can focus on specifically watching the biggest joke in the world of a Democratic primary because I'm just shocked. There's really no one that's really taking hold in this race at all.
Well, again, and let me just start off with this. But I know we've run out of time. BoxingSunglasses.com, and I'll try and remember to say it every week at least once. God's simple salvation plan, because that's the most important right now. Because we never know where these conversations are going to go. But knowing that the Creator of the universe and His Son, who walked the earth 2,000 years ago as the perfect sacrifice for all humankind, is ultimately in charge of this whole mess. And in Psalm chapter 2, I mean, God sits up there in heaven and basically says he will laugh at these people. And I'm not necessarily saying that is a literal, ha ha ha, I'm going to kill you all kind of thing, but in a more of a divine sense or a mockery, as we will, I guess, kind of elaborate on in the next few minutes of the show, period. Now, that being said, to your specific point, remember we've talked about this in the past. I think we spent the whole show on this, sometime in the past. I mean, it was brought up again last week and the weeks before. Remember, one of the chapters, I think, of the Old Testament that most applies to the current situation is that of Job chapter 12. Basically, I mean, these people, and I said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'm talking about Pelosi, Schiff, Nadler, these so-called Democrats, the media talking heads, which basically you're the face. I mean, they're the face of the un-American genocidal complex, because as we've talked about, the un-American genocidal complex, or what people commonly call now the quote deep state, or the Rockefeller, Rothschild Federal Reserve System, basically owns the media, academia, et cetera, as we've talked about many times on the show. But anyway, so the face of that quote conspiracy, those names I just mentioned, they are as compromised and as desperate and as dishonest, sleazy and stupid, and ridiculous as they seem. I mean, Nancy Pelosi ripping up the State of the Union address. I think the last time we talked, Neil, was last Tuesday. I think the State of the Union address was Tuesday night. And I said this, basically said the same thing last week. And there goes Pelosi acting basically literally like a petulant 5-year-old and ripping up the
Yes.
president's speech. So that's the perfect microcosm of what I'm talking about. Okay, and it also ties into another subject that I mentioned, that I sincerely believe that this is Revelation 13, the deadly head wound that Trump is applying, the deadly head wound to the beast. I mean, and if the a proper interpretation of Revelation 13 is not literal for the most part. And of course, there's literal, manifestations in real time, and this four-dimensional physical existence we call reality, three space and one time. But anyway, for the most part, it's meant to be symbolic. And anybody that tells you otherwise, which are a lot of so-called biblical scholars, in my humble opinion, do not know what the blank they are talking about. But that being said, let's just back up and say that the seven heads, if you go back to Isaiah chapter 7 and what a head really is, it's a political system. It's a city, it's a capital, and in fact, a specific leader. Um, and it's a whole body. But anyway, we don't have time to get into that right now. But anyway, for the purposes of right now, I'm of the mindset that Trump is applying as we speak, the deadly head wound to this political clown show known as the modern Democratic Party, the pro-abortion, genocidal, climate change freaks, and all these other people. He's applying the head wound, okay? And unfortunately, but let me just stick with that for a second. I mean, that will continue. I mean, I think you're going to see more exposures, more Jeffrey Epstein-like exposures, more exposures of Hillary Clinton, of all these people, the criminality that's been going on in Washington, D.C. for the past 100 years, as these politicians have basically been bribed and bought and sold and coerced ultimately by the Federal Reserve System. That's ultimately what it is. It was a nationwide coup, because they were able to just buy off the not only the economy, but the political system as well, as we've talked about many times. But anyway, Trump is exposing this all for everyone to see. And these people know it, hence their increased desperation and sophomoric childish behavior that will only continue to get worse as Trump keeps exposing them and continues to slay the head of the beast. Now, people may be saying, but there is a recovery. There's a deadly head wound that is recovered. And that is true. And maybe we can talk about that on future shows. And I believe that's coming towards the end of the year. And
definitely.
That kind of fits in with my narrative. Unfortunately, that when the Russians and the Chinese get wind of this and see the maniacs really running the nation after they get rid of Trump in whatever capacity, they will get rid of him. And I don't really care to speculate on that right now, although I have on past shows, but use your imagination. But anyway, there will be a recovery of that head wound of the beast and the beast system. Okay, and then things are going to get really interesting. And the Russians and the Chinese and other nations, and I'm not saying those nations are perfect, by the way, but will not be amused. And then I think that will segue into my breakdown of Revelation 17 and 18. So this is just how I think I see things going. I'm not happy about it. I'm constantly reading and going through and pouring through the Old and New Testament and putting the pieces of this together. So, and I'm certainly no biblical scholar. I don't profess to have a theology degree or anything like that, but be that as it may, that's the way I see things going. Now, of course, juxtaposed on all of this with this coronavirus that's emanating out of China. Okay, and we discussed that at length last week. So, that's going back to Matthew 24, I think that's the beginning of the diverse diseases, wars. We're starting to hear of wars and rumors of wars. Okay, we're starting to see those rumblings, Turkey and Syria. And in fact, this coronavirus, just depending on which, and I'm not talking about mainstream news, it depends on which respected scholar you listen to, not the people you see on Fox News, because, Fox News ultimately toes the government line. Hannity and the rest of the, Republican diehards notwithstanding. Anyway, you got to go out and research this stuff, and it appears that, and I'm of the opinion, again, it's just my opinion, that the coronavirus is man-made.
That's what we talked about. Virus. Yeah, that's what we talked about last week, and
so
true. Yeah.
What I'm getting at is it's possible, and I'm not saying this is true, but circumstantial evidence. It's not. I don't think it would be an invalid conclusion to say that maybe it was an accident. Maybe China released it on purpose. Maybe it was part of, they're looking to take over the United States with some kind of microbiological Pearl Harbor. And people say, oh, that's crazy, this and that. I mean, is it crazy? I mean, Genghis Khan, these, go back, Hitler, Stalin, Mao. You think these people would have stopped? You think Stalin would have stopped at 100 million, and now, 100 million, whatever he stopped at Hitler? These people would have stopped it. They weren't, curtailed by outside forces and all this sort of thing. So I don't think it's completely outlandish. And then, of course, we must ask, where the Chinese got this technology from. And the only ones really that were most into this type of study and manipulating viruses and diseases and genetic manipulations was right here in the United States. The Un-American Genocidal Complex. Right. I talked about it in my book. So, we're getting to a point where we have all this insanity, and then on top of all this, you have a general a feeling, I guess, that's pervasive throughout society of people just essentially going crazy. I mean, literally, people screaming in the streets. I mean, there's this issue. What was it, down in Florida, with this guy didn't like Trump people, so he tried to run him over with his van while he was filming it. And I'm not deifying Trump, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I mean, people need to be aware of that. I just want to make sure that that's clear. But anyway, I think what Trump is, I think these people are literally being driven insane. I think it, and I think it,
right.
and that,
right.
That reflects of Matthew chapter 8 and the Gadarene, the madman, the Gadarene madman was demonically possessed, and there's nothing else to do with him. Until Jesus come along, of course, and healed him. But before that, he was locked. They stuck him out in the middle of the desert and tied him in chains. And I think there's a lot of that going on. I think these people are literally, they've rejected God. God's rejected them. So it's a mutual kind of divorce. Zechariah chapter 11 for starters. But anyway, and now they're they got the kings and the gods that they asked for, just like 1 Samuel chapter 8, except in this case, where in 1 Samuel chapter 8, it was a physical king in terms of King Saul. Here they got the king that they really want, which is King Kronos, or the Apollyon of Revelation chapter 9 and his minions. And just like in Matthew chapter 8, I think a lot of this is the source of a lot of this insanity. So, again, I mean, I guess I've been kind of rambling
No,
here.
you haven't been, but I mean, when you talk about just the coronavirus and different things that are going on, you have to shake your head. Trump, possible Trump impeachment, all these things, and we continue to go down deeper and deeper into immoral territory. We're close. If based on your predictions, we're very close. Diseases is part of the whole revolution as well. Diseases, and there you go. There goes one right there.
Yeah. Well, that's Matthew chapter 24, and again, in one sense, I mean, I hate that I'm skeptical. To just say the word funny, but it is kind of comical watching, say, Nancy Pelosi trying to get up there and explain how she's praying and prayerful. Ms. Multi-millionaire, Ms. Hypocrite, and Ms. partial birth abortion supporter, and she has the audacity to get up there and say she's praying to God about Trump's sham impeachment. I mean, these people are shot, but it's almost comical now to watch them as Trump, whose IQ apparently is like 150, 160. The guy's like a genius, running circles around these buffoons. And they really are a bunch of buffoons, Nadler and Schiff and Schumer. I mean, I just don't think these are particularly bright people. I think Sanders, they went to their colleges, got their political science degrees, and went into politics, and they're just salespeople ultimately. They're just slimy salespeople that sell people a bill of crap, and they're able to pay for it with fake Federal Reserve notes, and they're bought and sold. And this is what they do. And now that Trump, a legitimate president, and presidents aren't supposed to be legitimate. The last one that tried to be legitimate was JFK. I mean, maybe Reagan to an extent, but JFK was the last one. And we also what happened to him, Andrew Jackson, back in 1842. He successfully took on the Federal Reserve System at the time. The Rothschild, it was really directly controlled by the Rothschild at that time, but and they tried to assassinate him. So many congressmen throughout the 20th century. Louis McFadden, there was a congressman named Larry McDonald. He was on a flight, I remember 1983, I think it was. I think I was a freshman in high school. Korean Airlines was all of a sudden that flight, somehow mysteriously went over in Russian airspace, and the Russians shot it down, and all kinds of mysterious deaths. Joe McCarthy, the great Joe McCarthy, all right, of people in Congress that have risen up, and of course JFK, who I mentioned, have risen up to fight this. But that aside, I mean, these people, these sellouts, that's what they are. They're a bunch of putzes. I mean, they're clowns, and we're seeing it live on, we're seeing it unfold. We're seeing their very sanity leave these people each day on TV. And of course, I'll conclude with this. I mean, look at the Democratic presidential clown show. I mean, in my opinion, anybody dumb enough to still take these people seriously, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but you can't take this. It's not possible people are that stupid. To take these clown car of candidates seriously. This Klobuchar, apparently she's up in the polls, but I think the only reason she's up is because the other people are so bad. I mean, it's just like she's like the best choice of a bunch of worse choices. It's. I mean, what are they going to do against Trump? What is Sanders going to say? He's going to slobber and say, "Oh, we're going to give you everything for free." Blah blah blah. Trump runs circles around the city, and that's what they're so scared of. And then I'm telling you, they're scared because they know they can't beat Trump legitimately, and that's why I think again that's the political headwind. And once, let me conclude with this. Let me say it like this. Trump has proven that the presidency of the country and the government of the country can really work for the people. He's not some Bush, Clinton, Obama putz that just sits there and pushes paper and says things can never get better. And meanwhile, he's actively selling out the country, getting us involved in fake wars and sending our industry to China. Trump's reversing all that, okay? And he's proving that their presidents can really get things done with the right mindset if they're not bought and sold. And the swamp, or whatever you want to call the establishment, they recognize this. And this is why they're so scared of him. And this is why they will,
Right.
unfortunately, literally, possibly literally, and I don't want to speculate, but look to take the man's life, just like they did with JFK. I just think in that desperation, and then, and then from there, we can pick it up
crazy.
next week.
No, Rob, I understand your frustration, and we'll figure out what happens next week, okay?
I know. Talk to you later, man.
Take care. All right. Thanks. That was the Rob Roselli Show, everyone.